Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Asharet, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech Malchei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
All right, we have something huge to share this week. Wow! Last week we mentioned that viewer Yankee, remember this? Viewer Yankee was,
how could I forget?
Okay, was working on a bumper of a conflict of interest, and now we can present it to you folks. Yankee claims there are new facts surfacing which at least appear to show that the judge is involved in a brand new cover-up, lady. A brand new cover-up. This is explosive information. This is huge. Ready?
Wow, my pulse is just jacking.
She showed...
like the crickets. Like it's just thumping. It must be going 140 beats a minute right now.
Okay, I can imagine. She showed up in the appeals court building, lady, on the day of the Rubashkin appeals hearing. And she allegedly spoke with two of the three appellate justices. In other words, Rubashkin is going in for his case is coming up in the appellate court. There are three justices who are going to hear the case. Two of them, the judge from the original sentencing is in the courthouse talking to on the day of the hearing. Okay, I'm going to give the details in a second. According to Yankee, it appears she was attempting to influence an outcome to Rubashkin's appeal that would protect her and the prosecutor's original unethical actions from ever being exposed. If that were true, this is a giant scandal. This is giant, lady. This is going to be like Watergate level. This is a giant scandal. At 1 p.m. on June 15th in the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals in St. Louis, Missouri, okay, the court heard arguments from Rubashkin's lawyers actually, that deal with a question of whether or not Judge Linda Reed, who presided over the Rubashkin trial, should have recused herself or not. That's at 1 p.m. on June 15th. Earlier that morning, it was reported that Reed was actually in the building and spoke with Justices Levensky, Smith, and Diana Murphy, two of the three presiding over the appeals. That's very odd because Reed is a judge in Iowa. What was she doing in St. Louis? She has no business being in St. Louis. Why was she there? So here are the details. Reed served as a substitute appellate justice in St. Louis starting the day before the Rubashkin case was heard. Apparently it's like normal protocol that a chief district judge from that district could come into the Court of Appeals that day and serve as a substitute appellate justice. That's not unusual. What's unusual is that she hadn't been a substitute at that St. Louis appellate court in more than 5 years prior to that. 5 years goes by, she's never stepped foot in St. Louis. The day before the Rubashkin trial is coming up for an appeals, and the appeal was based on her misconduct, she suddenly appears in the court building. What a coincidence! How convenient! What are the odds on that one, lady?
What? Speechless.
What are the odds that the judge shows up and is called in? She's called in to substitute starting the day before the case is going to be heard about her, and that way she'll be in the courtroom that day in the morning. She'll be working alongside two other justices, and those two other justices will then join a third justice, and they'll decide her own fate. Isn't that convenient that she got called in? Isn't that wonderful? Don't you wish life was so easy for you? You know, when you needed like a break, like a certain day to be in a certain place, like, you know, it just happens. Wow. So Reed, together with Smith and Murphy, were the three justices hearing cases in the morning of the 15th. Then in the afternoon, the other two justices go on, they sit on a case where fingers point back to Reed. At a minimum, lady, sitting together like that reflects extraordinarily bad judgment in designating Judge Reed to sit at that time on the 8th Circuit. But according to Yankee, it clearly looks worse than that. It looks horrible. It appears she covered her tracks by trying to get sympathy from her colleagues, the judges, and talk them out of putting her on the stand or forcing her and the prosecutor to take an oath. It looks like she got them to call her in as a substitute that week so she could be there and kind of keep a lid on things. Or even if she did get called in by accident, she had access to those two justices. That morning, she can sweet talk them, she can tell them anything. Even if she didn't do any of those things, there's the appearance of impropriety, and it looks like she could have done that. And so to the impartial observer, such as myself, standing on the street, I say, something smells like a rat here. And why wouldn't she try to cover it up, you ask? She could have been given a greater sentence than she gave Rubashkin if she did what it appears she's trying to cover up. If Judge Reed being there that day was not an apparent conflict of interest, then the term no longer has any meaning at all. Remember, it just has to have the appearance of impropriety, and clearly her being there that day shows that appearance. Lady, you should post some of this stuff on your blog. You should really get involved and post some. This is a huge scandal. Just the fact that she was in the courtroom, in the court building that day, is a huge scandal. The fact that she was there and she hadn't been there in 5 years, what is she doing there? Can't you smell a rat? Do you smell a rat on this one?
It's either a rat or a cricket.
What do you think? You want to put this in your blog?
I'll have to pray on it.
I'll also tell you that it's in the Huffington Post.
Oh, okay.
You can grab it off the Huffington Post.
Okay, yeah.
You can grab some of this off the Huffington Post.
Yeah.
You can post it on your blog in the
Send me
morning.
the link, yeah.
I'll send you the link. It's in the Huffington Post. It's right there. That this stuff's going on. Like, why is she in the court building? This is not. There's an appearance of impropriety. It looks like you got two things going on. First, you have the original scandal with the Burger King bailout, and she's like, talking to the prosecutors. She's not. Excuse me. She's talking to the law enforcement before the raid. She's involved in the raid, and then she sits on the trial. So she's the judge, she's the prosecutor, she's the sheriff, she's everything. That's how it looks. Then she's got her hands in the meat. She's invested in Burger King. She's invested in, like you said, Chase. Then when the whole thing goes, and we say, hey, the judge was involved in all this stuff. The judge suddenly shows up and she's on the appellate trial. She's like, oh, no. She's like everywhere. She's the judge, jury, the appellate judge. She's like everywhere, right? So, like, some of this is not looking good anymore. You know what I mean? It's not looking kosher. Like, even if you're a person who was an opponent of Rubashkin and you felt like he was guilty, right? At this point, you have to say to yourself, something's wrong. Something wonky here. Something fishy here. Don't you have to? So I would say you should definitely put it on your blog at this point. This is worth blogging about, don't you think?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we got that. Yankee asked a very interesting question, and I'll leave up with this part. Is there any way that defense attorneys can take this situation out of the hands of the circuit court, where she's done all this damage and she's already, by the virtue of the fact that the circuit court called her in to do substitution work that week, tells you there's something wrong with the circuit court and they have terrible judgment. So can we take the situation out of their hands and put it directly in the hands of the Supreme Court or Congress? Because what has been pointed out makes it clear that the 8th Circuit Court is nothing more than the nation's ultimate kangaroo court. That's what Yankee says. Okay? I would add that they may, if they do go to the Supreme Court, this is my own words, they may need to recuse Obama's 2 appointees who were Kagan, what was her name? Alana Kagan, and the other one. What do you remember his first appointing the woman?
Alana Kagan.
No, that was the second one. The first one was like
Sandra Sotomayor.
That's it, Sotomayor. And I'll explain why I believe they need to kick both off. And the answer is because when Barack Obama...
Let me read the chat while you explain.
Okay, Barack Obama, when he was campaigning...
Don't worry about the chat.
Okay, when he was campaigning for president in 1988, he was probably... when he was campaigning for president in 2008, So the first place he campaigned was Iowa, because the first primaries in Iowa, right, or whatever they call it. It's one of the first places they always campaign. He was campaigning in Iowa, and during the primaries, and somebody came up to him. This, you know where I heard this? It was in those videos from that lawyer Lewin. Remember him, Nathan Lewin? And he was speaking at the Unity thing, and he brought this out, and I just remember hearing this. That when Barack Obama was a candidate, and he was a U.S. Senator, he was a candidate during the primaries for the Democratic nomination in 2008, so he was going through Iowa trying to get, support for the Iowa caucus or whatever, and somebody asked them what they thought of the whole agri-processor situation. And he commented, and he said it's a terrible situation over there. They're taking advantage of they're exploiting the workers over there and whatnot. And, he found them guilty before the trial. He found Rubashkin guilty. He basically convicted Rubashkin before the trial. Rubashkin wasn't guilty of anything yet, and we say innocent until proven guilty. And Barack Obama, who hadn't been in the courtroom, had no access to any of the evidence, poskined this. He made a verdict out of his ass. Barack Obama pulled out of his ass and said that Rubashkin is guilty. Okay, whether you think Rubashkin is guilty or not is irrelevant. Whether you like Obama or not is irrelevant. Facts remain, Obama should be ashamed of himself, and he's a disgrace because he considered himself a constitutional law professor at Harvard. Of course, you're going to say he was just a
affirmative action hire.
Affirmative action hire, right? And here he is, and he's so much for the rule of law, so much for innocent until proven guilty, because Barack Obama already considered the guy guilty before he starts. Therefore, I would say that the two appointees from Obama, because Obama's already weighed in on the Rubashkin case prior to the verdict, he's part of the conspiracy too, as far as I'm concerned. Therefore, his two picks for all are tainted. His two picks are tainted. How do we know they're not payback for being nominated to the Supreme Court? Therefore, they're going to go ahead and kiss his ass and make him look good on this as well. I say screw it. Kick Kagan and the other one, Sotomayor? Kick them both off. Work with the other 7. That's what I have to say.
It reminds me of when I came to Los Angeles. I was just an innocent child. I was 27 years of age. And I ended up going out with a series of wily 40-year-olds. And they exploited me. Just like agro-processors supposedly did according to those illegal immigrants. These women took advantage of my callow youth. I mean, they had me working for minimum wage. They had me slaving underneath them. I mean, I served these women in a variety of positions. And they were robbing the cradle. I was just a child. I was coming out 6 years, basically confined to bed by chronic fatigue syndrome. I was just starting to see the world again. I was just new in Los Angeles. They took advantage of my inexperience. I was just so eager to participate in life again that when they said something, I go, oh sure, I'd be happy to do that, or oh yeah, that sounds like great fun, or whatever you need, or how can I service you? And they took advantage of me. They exploited my youth. My face was unlined, my skin was still soft. I had the vigor of like a 21-year-old man, and they exploited me to the death. I mean, they exploited me far worse than agro-processors exploited any of these illegal Central American immigrants.
Okay.
I mean, I was like working in the meatpacking industry for 40-year-old women. I mean, this was a real meatpacking industry. I mean, because they weren't all so slim, okay? They weren't all so slender. I mean, these were heifers, some of them. Like, they really packed on the pound. And there I was slaving away in this meatpacking industry, like for minimum wage at best, for the odd free meal. And I was exploited.
All right, so now you gave a new meaning to the phrase meat packing.
Exactly.
Because you pack their meat is what you're saying.
Chas v'shalom, hasbala lila.